What is up, Premier Planet? This is PPW official Danny Dixon here, and I'm continuing the Black Wrestlers You Should Know series here on YouTube. Randy and a few other colleagues of mine are doing Black Wrestlers You Should Know, as February is Black History Month, and we want to honor the professional wrestlers that have shaped the industry today. And in today's episode, we are going to be discussing Monty Brown, also known as Marquis Corvan, for all of you WWE ECW fans out there. I'm doing this completely off the top of my head, so if I have anything incorrect in this video, feel free to leave a comment. Or if you have a personal Monty Brown or Marquis Corvan match that you think everyone should check out, feel free to leave it in the comments. We would appreciate it, and I'm sure the other viewers would appreciate it as well. So, as I was doing some research for this video, I noticed that Monty Brown had a stint in NFL and he had a football career prior to joining the industry of professional wrestling. And I mean, this guy is built like a tank. He's about 6'2", almost 300 pounds of pure muscle. You talk about the look and the importance of the look in professional wrestling. Well, let me tell you, friends, Monty Brown had the look. And not only did he have the look, but he had charisma. And that's something that I think really helped elevate him to that next level, especially in TNA, where he gained prominence. So in TNA, he was one of the pinnacle stars when they switched to Impact in 2004, when they started adding that as a weekly series. They filmed it in Universal Studios. Randy actually worked for TNA at one point, and I'm sure he has a lot of stories about his tenure in TNA. But we're going to focus on Monty Brown and his rise. So something that always stuck out to me with Monty Brown was that he had a pretty badass theme song, both in TNA and in WWE for that matter. You know, I believe he sampled Disturbed Down with the Sickness in TNA. I think he used the part where they had the wah-ah part. I just remember rewatching an episode of Impact and I was like, oh, isn't that Disturbed? I was surprised they were able to get away with that, but it made it that much more badass nonetheless. And plus, at the time, TNA had the tunnels that wrestlers would come out of, and I thought that was a really cool production decision that they had, because it made you feel like you were following a wrestler as they were making their entrance. And Monty Brown, he came out with such intensity, and you knew that whoever he was fighting is in for a beating, you know? Monty Brown had that intensity, and he had that unpredictability factor that you didn't necessarily know what he was going to hit you with and when he was going to hit you. And that leads me to talking about his finisher, which is the pounce. And I think the pounce was one of the more innovative finishers in professional wrestling history. I mean, think about it. It's basically like a football tackle, but the thing that made it so special was that you never knew when it was coming. I mean, think about all the iconic finishers in professional wrestling. You think about the Stone Cold Stunner, you think about the RKO, you think about the Attitude Adjustment. You always kind of know when a wrestler's about to hit that. Like Randy Orton, he will do the slither and the fist pound, and he has that wake-up taunt, so you know that the RKO is coming, or at least being attempted. For Monty Brown, obviously there's a little bit of a setup, but he can hit the finisher at any angle. And I mean, he can hit it on guys any size. Think about it. He nailed Abyss, and Abyss, by all means, is no small man. Abyss was 6'8", well over 300 pounds, and Monty Brown collided with him like a freight train. And I think that's what people keep going back to when it comes to Monty Brown. You know, I see on Twitter or X all the time, oh my God, Monty Brown's pounce was something incredible. And you just see a bunch of compilation clips of him hitting that finisher. And I feel like that's what people take away from Monty Brown. But he also had that charisma factor. You know, some of his promos were insane in TNA. I remember he feuded with Jeff Jarrett over the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, because at the time, the TNA World Heavyweight Championship wasn't a thing. They had a partnership with the NWA, and the World's Heavyweight Championship was the top prize in TNA. And I remember Monty Brown kept getting closer and closer and closer to the NWA Heavyweight Championship, but it seemed like every time he was gaining some traction, something halted in his way. More often than not, it was Jeff Jarrett, who is still going strong today, might I add, but that's another story for another day. And then eventually, Monty Brown would find his way into the WWE. I believe it was 2006, 2007. This was the years that I really found an interest in Monty Brown, because at the time I didn't really know that TNA was a thing. It wasn't something that I knew that I had access to watching until much later on in life. But when he was in WWE ECW, that's when I was like, yo, this guy's crazy. I remember he did a pounce to Sabu, and that man Sabu went flying. I was like, God almighty, this guy went crazy, flew into the ropes. It was crazy. I believe it was a 6-man tag, and I think it was the New Breed versus the ECW Originals. It probably makes sense. I remember Kevin Thorne was in it as well. But Monty Brown, Marcus Corvan, he nailed Sabu. And I keep seeing that particular clip of one of the best pounces of all time. But another thing about Marcus Corvan, Monty Brown, that I enjoyed was his theme song. You know, once he transitioned to WWE, he kind of had this like gospel type song. It's like, you're going down, down, down. Dude, that song was fire, and it had no reason to slap that hard. So shout out to Monty Brown, Marcus Corvan's WWE ECW theme song. But I feel like something was holding him back in ECW, because I feel like he was so close to getting that ECW Heavyweight Championship. I remember when everything went down and they had to crown a new ECW champion, he fought CM Punk in the semifinals, and I was like, dang, is Marcus Corvan about to win a title? Because with the New Breed, he was kind of put in a position where he was the muscle of the group. You know, you had Elijah Burke, who was the vocal one, the leader, the guy who would basically order all the operations. And then you had Marcus Corvan and Kevin Thorne, who were kind of like the mercenaries, the heavies, who would basically be the people who would like beat them down. And then you had Matt Stryker, who would, you know, be the brains of the operation in a way, along with Elijah Burke. And I feel like the New Breed was something that was so interesting, and I feel like should be studied more in depth, because think about it, all these guys were like fresh and new talent to WWE at the time. These guys, it was more than likely their first real experience out with an audience the size of WWE, you know. Obviously, Marcus Corvan had that experience in TNA, so he was familiar to that type of environment. But a lot of these guys, it was their first real test. I mean, Kevin Thorne also was Mordecai in WWE, but really they relied on each other to garnish reactions from the audience. And I think if they gave Marcus Corvan more championship opportunities, if he had a longer tenure, I mean, maybe his age was something that was factored in, but I really think that Marcus Corvan could have been a compelling ECW heavyweight champion. I mean, he had the mic skills, as we saw in TNA. If you go rewatch like 2004 TNA, I remember they had a triple threat with Jeff Hardy, Abyss, and then Monty Brown. He knows how to speak, you know, and that's important. You want to be a well-rounded wrestler in every single category that there is. And I think Monty Brown had that, but it was just a matter of other factors kind of holding him back from doing so. I think if they had Elijah Burke, you know, feud with Marcus Corvan, that could have been a really compelling feud for the championship. But that's for another story, for another day. But the fact of the matter is that Marcus Corvan was a heavy hitter in the New Breed. And I feel like he was the one that stood out the most, obviously, aside from Elijah Burke, because Elijah Burke cut these really compelling promos that made you want to listen, that made you want to boo. Elijah Burke knew how to garnish reactions, but Marcus Corvan also took what he was given and garnished reactions with his unpredictable finisher. So if you don't watch a Marcus Corvan match, at least go on YouTube and search Monty Brown, Marcus Corvan best pounces. Because I bet you there's a poop ton of compilations where it's just like, holy crap, I did not see that finisher coming out of nowhere. Because this guy would just run you over like a freight train. And I think that intensity and that charisma and those amazing theme songs deserve to be talked about more, especially this month. But I feel like in general, people kind of overshadow how cool Marcus Corvan, Monty Brown was. And I feel like if more people are watching his work, maybe he'll return to social media if a lot of people talk about him. In this day and age, anything can go viral on social media. So if enough people are talking about him, maybe he'll come back on social media and say, hey, I appreciate everyone talking. Here are some of the memories that I've had when I was in professional wrestling. Because after WWE, it was a hot minute before we saw Marcus Corvan again. I think he ended up retiring from the industry not too long after. So maybe we could bring him back. But at the very least, we want to honor him and all of the contributions that he made to WWE, to TNA. And we want to thank him for his contributions, All right, guys. Let me know your favorite Marcus Corvan, Monty Brown match, moment, pounce, any of the following. And if you're in the Rockford, Illinois area, come on out to one of our shows. We tape professional wrestling live every Saturday night, 3839 Broadway, Rockford, Illinois. We would love to see you there. And with that, Danny Dixon signing out.